The land explored by our ancestors extends from Ulytau to the White Sea. The scientific expedition Trails of Nomads continues to unveil the path of our forefathers. A group of scientists, led by pilgrim of the 21st century Sapar Iskak, has already visited more than 50 countries. Scientists reveal the exciting secrets of the past. Watch an amazing story of a great journey in the Trails of Nomads program. Features of the burial in the tomb of the Karsakbay mausoleum. What is known about the tradition of the Kazakh ritual suyek kosu, settlement of Koylybay on the bank of the Dulygaly river. Why did the saint bequeathed to bury him on a hill? True Holodomor of the Red Terror of 1931. What was the popular name for the uprising in the Karsakbay settlement? The Kazakh people have a ritual, suyek kosu. The participants of the scientific expedition Trails of Nomads got acquainted with the monument dedicated to this tradition in Ulytau. Mausoleum Karsakbay is located on the bank of the Karsakbay river, 10 kilometers from the village of Shenber. The portal-domed structure was built in the Islamic architectural style, but the burial rules are special here. Such a mausoleum is a rarity. Burial rules here are not similar to traditional Islamic ones. It is not easy here, as is customary in our country, to bury in the ground. First, the body is placed in a special side niche in the grave, lakat. Later, after the body dries up, it is thrown into a well and the body of another deceased is put in place. It is customary for the Kazakhs to bury the deceased in a grave with a special side niche. That was also a tradition called suyek kosu, according to which remains were buried in a special mausoleum like makat. The scientist Akseleo Seydimbek wrote about this in detail in Kazakh-related system. According to the book, this custom implies the burial of relatives, representatives of one dynasty in one place, in one grave. This tradition originated in difficult times of troubles. All the dead soldiers were buried in one place. Later, in a period when a large number of people died from hunger or during wars, representatives of one dynasty were buried in one place too. According to Akseleo Seydimbek, there are established traditions in the construction of tombs and mausoleums for burial in the Kazakh steppe. Relying on the stories of one Aksakal from Ulytau, Tai Tileganov, the scientist characterized the mausoleum as follows. A room with an area of 8 by 6 square meters and a height of 2.5 meters is being dug underground. A dome is erected above it. In the middle, the room is divided by a wall. It should be no more than 1.5 meters high. This leaves an open space up to 1 meter up to the ceiling. Later, the bones of the deceased are transferred from the niche to another distant part of the room precisely through this open space. Akseleo Seydimbek also mentioned about a room that is divided into 3 parts. The first is for the bones of men, the second for women, and the third for children. In addition, the scientist drew attention to the wall at the exit, sheathed with wooden boards. There are 2 main purposes. The first is to strengthen the wall as a support. Secondly, the body of the deceased is placed on the shelves formed as a result of sheathing, which will remain here until it dries completely. Then the bones are transferred to another part of the room where the bones of other relatives are located. This is the ritual which the Kazakhs call suyek kosu. Akseleo Seydimbek writes in his book about the related system of the Kazakhs.
Жаңа бұл тақтайшаға қарасақ, 20 ғасырдың басында
The sign says that the mausoleum was built at the beginning of the 20th century. However, according to some scholars, the mausoleum may have been built in the 18th century. It really looks like this, because the patterns, materials, quality of construction indicate on the technology of the 18th century. It was built very well. Stones were also laid underground for strength, and there is no foundation. Accordingly, there are no cracks in the walls. The mausoleum is practically in its original form. Makat Sakana C mausoleum was built in the style of the model described by Axeleo Seidinbek. It was erected on a hill away from groundwater. Its most important feature is a special ventilation system, which allows the body of the deceased not to deteriorate but to dry out and turn into dust, so that the people who entered would not get poisoned. A very high-quality ventilation system was made in the mausoleum from the point of view of technical engineering. Its 3 branches are connected to one, which brings everything outside. In addition, the door of the mausoleum is lined with felt. In summer, this prevents warm air from entering the mausoleum. Brick walls also help maintain a constant temperature inside. Another feature worth paying attention to is the staircase built up along the wall, as in the mausoleum of Ala Shah Khan. The bricks are red, as you can see. They're almost in their original form. There are also ovens at this place where these bricks were made. Ornaments are also special. The tablet reads, Allah, Allah, Muhammad. This suggests that all local residents adhered to the Islamic religion. According to local historians, this mausoleum was built by order of Makat Sarjanuli. This wealthy man lived on the border between the Torgai and Ulytau pastures. His descendants were buried in the mausoleum. According to some reports, the last burial in the mausoleum was in 1994. The name Sakana, which means the old mausoleum, is very rare. This is a rare type of construction found on the territory of Kazakhstan. There are only 3 places in Zhezkazgan. These are the Sakana of Kalmanbat, Sakana of Makat. Then there is Karl Marx. This is the old name. There is one more in the direction of Janarka. We only know 3. Yet, Axeleo Seidinbek, in his book on the related system of Kazakhs, listed a significant part of the tombs that have survived to this day. For example, near the village of Al-Gabas along the Nura River, near the village of Kayindi in the Turgai area, and Bet Pakara along the pastures. Axeleo Seidinbek says that at one time the body of Mashkour Jusub Kopeyuli was buried in a mausoleum built especially for him. It was built in the old style, taking into account all the old technologies. According to eyewitnesses, 20 years later, Mashkour's body was very well preserved. Unfortunately, this historically significant holy place was destroyed in 1951 under the influence of communist ideology. The leader of the expedition, Sapar Iskakov, while researching the history of the mausoleum, learned the following documentary information.
Осындай саханалы тамдар солтүстік Кавказда Ингушетия территориясында көрдім. Сонда мен таң қалғам.
I saw such mausoleums in the North Caucasus and Ingushetia. I was surprised that we also have such structures. Local residents do not know when, by whom, and why they were built, because local residents do not build such mausoleums. They say that these are possibly Nogai burials of the 12th, 13th centuries. It turns out that there is some kind of connection between the burials. I think that tribes moved here and buried according to their traditions. This is the connection.
Солар көшкен уақытында өздерінің дәстүрлерін сақтап қалған. Сол бойынша олар көпке шейін өздерінің адамдарын солай жерлеп келген. Сонда міне байланыс бар.
We will tell you more about this similarity in the program dedicated to the work of the expedition in Ingushetia. In the meantime, we will continue to talk about the research of scientists in Ulytau. The next stop of the expedition is the Kaykibatir cave. It is located to the east of the Makatsakanasi mausoleum at a distance of 2 kilometers in a rock on the northern part of the Karatorgai River. The height of the rock reaches 30 meters, and the cave is 10 meters above the river level. The front part is covered with white stones. In the right corner, there is a small hole through which people go inside. The area can accommodate up to 6-7 people, and the ceiling height is good. The surrounding area is clearly visible from the cave. However, it's hard to see from the outside what's going on inside. After the death of Abdigapar Khan and Mongolde Imanov, Kaykibatir was persecuted. He was hiding in this cave. According to some documents, he stayed here for 4 years. The villagers have erected a monument on the historical land. The verses of the Zheskazgan poet Mukash Seytkazin are engraved on the marble stone. On the first day of their stay in Ulytau, the expedition members visited such historical places. On the second day, the scientists visited another facility, the reserve of the Ulytau Museum. Then, they visited the Koylybay Baxi Healer Mausoleum, 90 kilometers west of the regional center.
Бұл кісі кезінде бақсы болған, адамдарды емдеген.
This man was a medicine man at one time. He treated people. He was a renowned kosu player. So he remained in the memory of the people. I want to know that Al-Farabi also healed people, including with the help of music. He healed the inner world, the spiritual world. I was in Damascus at the clinic where he worked. People were really treated with the help of music there, without any medication.
Сол емханада музыка арқылы адамдарды емдеген. Ешқандай дәрі пайдаланбайды.
Speaking about the healing abilities of the Koylybay shaman, it is enough just to cite the opinions of prominent scientists about him. Shokan Walikhanov said, Koylybay is the best healer, protector. He is the second shaman or medicine man after Korkut. Alkay Margolan wrote, Koylybay is the one who inherited the art of Korkut's kosu and his extraordinary strength. He is a student of Korkut. There are special places on this river where people bathe. Now nobody knows about them, but that person's holiness is there. The right side is fresh and the left is salty. They rinse their mouths with salt water and wash their faces with fresh water. But now no one can show this place. Perhaps it was only available to this holy man. Despite the fact that Koylybay is called Korkut's student, according to researchers, Koylybay lived much later than him. In this regard, one should pay attention to the words of Shokan Walikhanov that Koylybay healer received a blessing from Korkut Ata in a dream. There is also information that he was a teacher of kosu player in Baxi, Tilap Aspantayuli.
Koylybay бақсы менің 5-ші бабам Tilap бақсыны.
Koylybay healer is my 5th generation grandfather, and he taught Tilap music. He was his teacher. From this side, I know him well. There was a ballet at the time, Tilap and Sarikiz. Sarikiz is the daughter of Koylybay. During the production of the ballet, Koylybay also had his own hero.
Балеттің ішінде бір образды көрсетеді. Поэма шықты.
The poem Tilap and Sarikiz was published. The film Tilap and Sarikiz was released. There are heroes of Koylybay healer. He raised his daughter and my ancestor. Thanks to him, Tilap became an outstanding kosu player and healer. There are many legends about healer among the people. One of them is associated with Koylybay's kosu. The musical instrument competed with horses in the races. Koylybay came to the start in advance and tied his kosu to the old saksaul. Suddenly, a storm arose. The wind threw the saksaul along with the kosu tied to it. Subsequently, this case became the reason for Magjan Jumabayev's poem Kosu of Koylybay.
Енді қобызды тыңдасаңыз, күңіреніп айтқан уақытында қобыздан артық
If you listen to kobyz, there is no instrument better and more dramatic. Kobyz is the progenitor of all stringed instruments. Then, of course, there were no notes. There were few people who played this instrument. In Soviet times, playing the kobyz was not developed at all. There is one kuy among the people which everyone knows, Koylybay din serenade. But unfortunately, very few people know and perform it. Kuy entered the gold fund. There are also many different versions regarding Koylybay's burial. Here's one of them. After Ulytau became too small for numerous Kipchuks, a group of fellow tribesmen of Boltins and Berdikay, headed by Koylybay, migrated to the banks of the Dulygaly river. During the wanderings, Koylybay healer fell ill. Feeling the approaching death, he told his entourage that the cold was not far off, and in case of his death, it was not worth taking his body back to Ulytau. He ordered to bury him on the coast of the Dulygaly river on the hill where they performed the first prayer. A lot of people come to this person. They arrived not only from Kazakhstan but also from other countries: Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Bashkortostan, Tatarstan, and Russia. A lot of people come and make sacrifices. They spend the night here. They pray and ask for the fulfillment of desires. After the Koylybay Baksi mausoleum, the expedition members stopped in the village of Karsakbay. Near the village, on a hill, there is a monument to the victims of the uprising against the Red Terror, which led to a large-scale famine. The members of the expedition spoke about the reasons and preconditions for the tragic page in history.
1931 жылы Қазақстан территориясында үлкен ашаршылық болған.
In 1931, there was a great famine on the territory of Kazakhstan. This was caused by the wrong policy of the communists. They did not know the mentality, life, and occupations of the local population, customs and traditions. As a result, a huge number of people died. In 1931, there was an uprising. One of them happened in Karsakbay and on the territory of Kazakh. Previously was called the Uprising of the Laks, because representatives of the Kipchak clan of Laks took part in it.
Өйткені бұл көтеріліске қатысқан қыпшақтардың ішінде лақ руы, сондықтан бұны жергілікті халық лақ көтерілісі деді.
In 1931-1932, the bulk of the inhabitants of these places were in the industrial Karsakbay. The situation was difficult here. There was famine, which entailed the uprising. However, the Soviet government sent a punitive detachment, and in one night, all the protesters were killed. In this list, most of them relate directly to my grandfathers and great-grandfathers. Their names are indicated. These people, our grandfathers, were called Bays, and they were against the Soviet regime. Karsakbay was a regional center, and a punitive detachment under the leadership of Commander Galkin was sent from here. During one day, this detachment destroyed the entire village. All were shot. Some were abducted. There are the names of people who were shot and taken away, and the names of those who were repressed and persecuted. As President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev said, these blank pages of our history have not yet been thoroughly studied. Even scientists argue on the exact number of famine victims. Different views on the facts and their reasons are misleading. Relevant historical documents and collected data must be carefully studied. In 1931, there was also an uprising in Torgai. It was called the Bat Pakara Uprising. Then, too, many people died. Some were imprisoned, exiled to remote regions. In 1931-1932, during the famine, the Kazakh people lost, one might say, almost half of their population. Now all this truth is being revealed. Monuments are erected to our ancestors. These are the commemorative plaques. All this should remain in the memory of descendants. For this, more such monuments should be erected. With such thoughts and judgments, the participants of the scientific expedition Trails of Nomads finished their visit to Ulytau.